Hello. So right now I am fraying some jeans at the hem, and I've been asked to do this a few times, but I just wanted to show you because this is something that you could do if you just want to take the time to do it. So this is the original hem right here. So you can see like it's a little bit lighter than what, and I'll show you how to get to this in a second. It's a little bit lighter than what I've got right now, but eventually this will probably end up looking like this. And also, the reason that she got me to do this is because it had this little stitch line. Well, it had a stitch line here, and I've recreated it here. And the reason I did it lighter is because as she washes, it'll probably get to be closer to that color, which would match. And it'll fray further up into it, and this just kind of helps stop how much it frays. So, let me show you how to do this. Okay, so the first thing I did is I got her to put them on, and then I folded them up so she could see where it hit her with the type of shoes she thought she would wear with it, which was like a normal size wedge. And then I pinned it, and so then whenever I got to do it, it was kind of like folded up like this. So then what I did is I measured all the way around to kind of get like the average, and it landed to be about 3 inches that I needed to cut off. And so that's what I cut off. This was the original. And then what I did is I just sewed, I kind of looked at how much fray was already here, and it's about 1/2 inch. So then I sewed 1/2 inch in from, this is the little panel that I haven't done yet. So I just sewed like a little 1/2 inch in. And then this is kind of, I don't know, I think it's fun. This is like relaxing for me because it's just like repetitive. Okay, so I have my seam ripper, and so this is kind of like the science behind how things fray, and it's very basic. So you have knit fabrics, which is like this, most really stretchy things like a sweater, that's knit. They're looped together. And then things like jeans and like other things are, think like a sheet, the most basic form of fabric. Just think like your flatbed sheet. That's usually most all the time going to be a woven, unless it's like a jersey sheet or something. But this has stretch in it because it has, this tag actually tells me that it has lycra in it, which is something stretchy. It's a stretchy fiber that they have woven into the thread, and that allows it to stretch. So this, if you can see, you have your vertical lines, and okay, so here we've got, think woven, because this is woven. We have our vertical lines, and then you're gonna have horizontal lines too. So you can see where I've cut it already. Like this is before I've even tried to start fraying it. You have like these little threads coming out. That's what's coming off horizontal. And the point of this is you want to get all of those horizontal things out that are locking the verticals in place, so that then you have your verticals, this is not cleaned up, that are just allowed to hang free. Does that make sense? So how I do this is I just take my seam ripper. This might be hard for you to see. Hold on. Okay. This still might be a little difficult. So this seam ripper, all seam rippers have a little blade right here and like this U part. So this is for you to like stab or catch like a thread. So if I wanted to break that thread, I could just just slide it up under there and then pop it out. But I don't want to do that. But I'm using this, and probably not the best for my seam ripper, but they're pretty cheap. So this is the best way I found to do it. Is so I start here, and then I just kind of stab through a little bit under that stitch line that I've made. If you don't have a stitch line, then just go like 1/2 inch or over deep you want to make that little fray part, and then I just pull it through. If you don't have a seam ripper, you could make little cuts and then pull out the horizontal pieces. And like technically you could pull them out without cutting it, but it's harder to, if you start pulling them out without making the little snips, it just makes it harder to control how much fray is there. So that's why I just like to do it. So I'm just going to kind of do this little chunk right here. And I just continue, like, just want to make it smaller. Okay, Okay, so I'm gonna finish this one and then I'll come back. I realized when I watched those that you couldn't really see how I was pulling this. Just like that. If you could see how I had this camera propped up right now, it would just... When you get to the seam, I have this little mat that has better grip on it than my table. So don't do this because this will scratch whatever surface is under it, so don't do it on something nice. Okay, so the next thing I do, since this is completely frayed all the way around now, is I just kind of give it a haircut, just like trim it a little bit where all these longer scraggly pieces are. And I know, like, I bought jeans before that they leave those long scraggly pieces. Is that a word? But these didn't come that way, so I'm not going to leave them that way. And as she washes and wears them, it might release more of them, and she doesn't have to trim them. That's just the thing with the stretch jeans. You know, sometimes you have to. Little guy that wants to hang on. Okay. So now you're probably noticing that, like, okay, so now you're probably noticing that this hem that you cut off is not as light as this. And let me explain why. It's going to take a little bit of time to get here. The people that make the denim probably have some kind of machine that, like, gives it friction or something and creates this, or like some kind of really fine comb that unwinds the thread. But pretty much, so you're left with the pieces that are vertical, and within those pieces, the threads are made up of fibers. All thread is made up of fibers. All fabric is made up of thread that is wound really tightly. And so what you're seeing here is that this has been unwound and is now like really feathery and lighter, whereas this looks a little coarser. So as she washes and wears, this will eventually loosen up and become more like this. But just keep in mind, this original hem on anything is really hard to recreate because we just don't have the type of machinery or technology that most of the manufacturers have that are making these things. Also, like with washes, a lot of times this kind of stuff is done with lasers. So there's a lot of different ways you can do jeans nowadays. But I love this because I really geeked out in my textile science class in school. Like, this is my jam, okay? But anyway, sometimes I will use either a comb or like a little brush like this, like a little boar bristle brush, to kind of just help like loosen it up before, just to kind of help. And sometimes it'll brush the white pieces out. But anyways, that is all. So I'm gonna kind of brush this out just to help fluff it up a little bit and make it a little bit finer. But this result is gonna be hard to achieve. Most people don't care if it looks exactly like this, they just want the frayed bottom. But it'll get closer to this as she again washes and dries it and like wears them. So that's all. Let me know if you have any questions.